Hi, it's Bobby from Fifth Avenue Cake Designs, and today we are doing a springtime sugar cookie. And we have an orange and yellow iris with an offset snail's trail border. So I'll show you how I did it. So we're going to do a tone-on-tone brush embroidery, and we're going to start with the top of the iris. And I'm going to add a little wiggle to the orange. I'm using a Tangerine by Sugar Flare. Going to get that nice and in. And then we're going to come in with a lemon yellow. My consistency is off peak. I'm using a number 2 PME tip. Normally on a brush embroidery I would go to a number 3. However, because this flower is so narrow and little on this cookie, and I wanted you to be able to see each and every stroke without blending the colors in too much, I went down to a number 2. I am now taking my gel brush and streaking in my colors. And I will show that to you again since I was talking about the tip. So we're going to go over to one of the sides, and we'll do this side next. And irises kind of have a flowing, loose move, so you want to keep your petals nice and big and round with a nice flow. And remember to wiggle when you're doing your brush embroidery just to get a nice little line. So my yellow is coming in underneath the orange. Irises normally have 2 colors, so that's why I did that. So I'm taking my gel brush. It's lightly dampened. I'm coming through and I'm bringing that brush embroidery down, following the dimensions and the way the petal goes. And I'm streaking those colors together because it's a tone on tone. I want to make sure that I do not go through the back of my color, but yet I get a pretty embroidery look. So we're going to do all 5 of them. It kind of reminds me almost of a parrot tulip. It was a little bit more open towards the top. I wanted to do a different type of flower than just a rose or a blossom. So that's how I ended up doing these irises. And I love the combination of orange and yellow. So as you can see, I'm just going in with the side of my gel brush. And this brush was made for brush embroidery. And just streaking my colors in and making sure that I give it a nice feathery type of a look. So we're going to come down and do the bottom petals, and they're wider and longer. You just want to make sure that everything kind of comes to the center and connects. Unlike a rose, the iris leaves are a little bit more separated, so it's a fun flower actually to brush embroider. I'm just turning this around so I can see and you can see. As you can see, I'm going through the orange and the yellow together, so I get a nice beautiful streak of color, but I am not at all touching that very back edge of the orange. If I took that out, it would take out the border look of my flower. Now on these bottom petals, I'm going to have a little bit of open whiteness, and that's okay. When you're brush embroidering, you want to be sure that your brush is not too wet or too dry. If it's too wet, you're going to end up just streaking your colors together and kind of get a little bit of a muddy mess. And if you're too dry, they're not going to move anywhere. I'm doing 1 petal at a time because I actually normally do 2, but because I'm showing them to you and I want you to see the best way to do it is to do one petal at a time. If your royal icing gets too dry, you won't be able to brush embroidery. The first petal that I started with, that top petal, is too dry for me to even go in if I didn't like something and fix it. But it's still wet enough that if I wanted to, which I don't, I could squish it. So you just want to make sure that you work at a pace that you're comfortable with. So now I'm going to go in with the center, and I'm going to start with that lemon yellow, and I'm going to put these little stamens in. I'm going to make a ball and bring it up. I'll make a ball and bring it up. And I'm going to mix it with a little bit of Vine Green by Squires, just to give a little bit of the contrast in the center there. And I'm doing the same thing. I'm making a ball and coming up. And all the tips I'm working with are number 2. So I have my stamen. And now I'm going to go ahead and grab some gooseberry green. And I'm going to put my stem in with paint. And that's what I did with the other one. I'm just going to go in, grab some gooseberry paint, make it nice and inky. It's a little too inky, a little too much paint. And just make a nice thin stem coming down from right here. And that's all I'm going to do for the stem. For the leaf, the leaves on an iris are kind of a wiggle to the side type of leaf. So what I'm doing is I'm just wiggling my gooseberry green icing at stiff consistency with a little bit of my vine green underneath to give me that two-tone. Coming thick at the bottom and out to a point. I'm giving it a nice natural bend. I brushed it a little bit too wet. I'm going to go back and dry that off. And I'm just brushing that down to a nice little point down here. So I get a nice, fat, almost scalloped leaf looking type of brush embroidery going on. So it looks like that. And I'll go ahead and do the other side the exact same way. All I'm doing is coming out from the stem, wiggling, making it fat, and then coming thin and down, sliding it on down. And I'm doing the same thing underneath here. And sliding it down to a point. And then I'll embroider it. Now as far as your border goes, I chose to do that off-center snail's trail. You can do whatever you want. I can show you how to do, I didn't get enough of a point, I'm not happy with that point. There we go. I can show you how to do that border real quick. But here's a fun, fancy looking cookie that didn't take hardly any time at all. And it's it's quite different than most of the brush embroidery that people do because it's a different type of flower. So you've got your leaves. Now to do that border that I have on there, and I'm hoping you can see this and my hand doesn't get in the way, I'm working with still that off-peak consistency. I'm going to make a teardrop just like I do when I'm doing a snail's trail. Bring it down. But instead of coming next to it, I'm going to go to the side and bring it down. And I'm just going to go back and forth that way. It gives the cookie almost a petally type finish without having to do a petal tip, which I thought might be a little bit heavy for this small of a cookie. So in a matter of, 7 minutes, you've decorated a beautiful cookie that anyone would be happy to have. I'll see you when I'm done putting this border on. So I'm just finishing up my little border, and you probably could get away without doing any border at all if you wanted to. I like to have a little bit of a border on my cookies. But as you can see, I started the border at the green leaf, and I'm going to end at the green leaf, so I don't disturb the beautiful leaf that I just made. So that's it. I hope you enjoy making this cookie.